okay. I think there it goes. Yeah.
There you go. We need a bling sound.
Yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't hear the bling. I don't think it.
Right. All right. Thanks. Welcome to the InstructLab community meeting for December 3rd, 2024. We're in the last month of the year. Time flies. Okay. Before we start on the great agenda that we have for you, we'll start with some housekeeping reminders for everyone. All our meetings are governed by the InstructLab Community Code of Conduct. And our meetings are also recorded and will be posted. The recordings will be posted to the InstructLab YouTube channel after this. If you prefer not to be on camera, feel free to join with the camera off, or you can also dial in via phone, from your car or something. It's whichever is convenient for you. If you are using Google Meet, please use the raise hand function to ask questions, or you can also use the chat function in the meeting to ask your questions or join in the discussions. And we will publish the chat transcript after the meeting as well. At the end of the agenda, we have this attendee list. Feel free to add your names to it. We like to know who are attending our meetings, but it's optional, so it's up to you. But just to point it out, if you're interested, add your name to that. All right, let's get started with just a couple of reminders for CFPs. Last week, I mentioned already the All Things Open AI event in Durham. The deadline is in 3 days, December 6th, so please get your proposals in as soon as possible. There's one I missed adding last week. It's actually for PyCon US. So it's more like not AI focused, but Python focused. But I think because our project is Python based, so there could be some relevant topics and talks that you can share in this event. So the deadline is December 19th. So a bit of time left, but keep in mind to submit if you're interested. And this one we have mentioned a couple of times, the software architecture and machine learning workshop. The CFP is due on December 20th. So all the links and CFP info is in the meeting notes. Feel free to check them out for more details. Okay, let's hear from the new CLI maintainers. Nathan or Charlie, is it? Would you like to introduce them? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think either are on the call, but you've probably seen them around Slack. So we have Mustafa and Ben here. They both went through the nomination process. They were nominated to do their contributions, and the votes were tallied, and they were both accepted as CLI maintainers. So big congratulations to the two of them. Very excited for them to be maintainers now, and welcome aboard to that group.
Yeah, definitely. Big welcome and congratulations. Yes, it's too bad they're not on the call today. It'll be nice to hear from them, but maybe in the future we'll hear more from them. Yeah.
And sort of on this topic, we also have another nomination that I actually opened myself here. And I don't think Reed is on the call, but I nominated Reed Liu for to be a CLI triager. Reed's been making a lot of contributions upstream and has done a lot of sort of fit and finish stuff for the CLI. So yeah, I've opened that up. I think voting will take place over about 3 weeks. So if you're a CLI triager or maintainer, please go and vote in the issue. If you have any concerns, feel free to reach out to me directly. And you can double check the governance doc, which is linked in the, I think it's in the agenda. Carol, can you open up the issue actually?
Did somebody accidentally delete the whole agenda block? I'm not able to.
Oh, well, I think we can just undo that now.
Yeah, if somebody can. Yes, thank you. Yeah, now I can click on that. Is this one?
Thank you.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can, if you're wondering the difference between a maintainer and a triager, the top of all these nomination issues details the contributor role documentation, so you can check out that. if you're curious what exactly this role entails. So yeah, that's kind of it I had on that. Any questions or comments with the maintainer or triager stuff? And just as a reminder to folks, this process is an org-wide process. So, the same applies for our friends at SDG training and evaluation. If you're looking to add, if you have upstream contributors you feel deserve the triager or maintainer sort of a team role, if you will, please feel free to make nominations there and share them amongst the community.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we have discussion on change references to CLI to rename CLI to something like core or engine.
Yeah, I can sort of introduce this topic. So so this is something that a lot of the maintainers have been talking about recently, as something that I think I know Oleg has brought up, Bill brought up in the dev doc that I have here for the InstructLab 1.1.0.0. But basically, so the InstructLab, a little bit of history for folks. So originally, the main sort of InstructLab repo was called the InstructLab CLI. And that was sort of when we were more like a research project, and the CLI was sort of just this main entry point. All the code lived in there, and it was sort of how we POC'd the project originally. As we broke out into the libraries, we renamed it from CLI to InstructLab as we began packaging things, because we wanted the packaging to be matching the Python packages we're publishing, and we were sort of moving away from it being just a CLI. And we're now sort of getting to the point where a lot of us still refer to it as the CLI. We have CLI maintainers, CLI triagers, but in the very near future, and the roadmap that I've sort of outlined in this document as well, this is not a CLI will still be a component of this Python package, but it's going to be more than that. It's also going to be where sort of API handling lives. It's going to be where sort of process management lives, artifact management. So we want to start changing the terminology and keeping the sort of InstructLab repository, but having it be referenced as something else. Some things that have been floated are things like core, something like engine. So what this would look like is basically we would update the name of the maintainer teams, the Slack channel names, the Discord channel names that Oleg is working on creating right now. And it's everywhere we basically have a reference to CLI, the meeting name, the community meeting name. Instead of using the term CLI, we would use something like, the InstructLab core, or the InstructLab engine. And yeah, so that's sort of the context around this. We got a lot of hands, so we'll run through these sequentially. Charlie, kick us out, kick us off.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's important to mention that you touched on this, but the emphasis on the fact that the InstructLab CLI started purely as a CLI, but it's kind of become more like an orchestrator is the way that we kind of think of it, where it kind of manages different parts of the workflow. It's the configuration management system already lives there. The process management system is being implemented currently. So I want to stress the point that moving back to calling it something like a CLI, or just, I guess, maintaining that we call it a CLI is kind of an improper nomenclature. And we should be calling it something either like orchestrator or core or engine. I kind of like engine more than core. I feel like, I don't know how others feel about that. I feel like it's more encompassing of everything that it kind of does. Kind of just like the thing that manages and runs all the other parts. Yeah, I kind of just wanted to emphasize the fact that moving away from CLI is the right thing to do, just because it's very much becoming more than that as time goes on.
Thank you, Charlie. I would probably say, I didn't mention this before, but I think engine would be my preferred nomenclature there. Oleg.
Yeah, so +1 to everything that was said. I think that it's definitely not fitting for it to be CLI, especially since we're decoupling CLI. A lot of open source projects that I've seen, like including Podman, IPFS, a few others, like kind of do the same thing where they have their main component as like the name of the project, like where most people will interface through, and then everything else like will have its own thing. I think ours is a little bit like more unique because we do expect like these components to be standalone, but definitely the CLI is more, or I would say InstructLab is more than just the CLI at this point, and as it grows, it will continue to be. That said, I don't know if engine is what we want to call it, only because I feel like engine implies that we are doing more under the hood, like actually building our own inference or like training, which we're not. So that's the only hesitation that I have. Other than that, I think like it's fine. So engine or core, either way works. I think we can keep like the repo as instructlab/instructlab. I think just the maintainer like team needs to be differentiated, because like if we just make it instructlab maintainers, then it's going to be very confusing.
Yeah.
But then if we
Agreed.
like change the name also, it's going to like add confusion. So I think the best middle ground is to just rename it to something like core maintainers or like engine maintainers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. One note here, sorry, right before Bill goes here, and I put this in the agenda notes, we will have to update the tooling after we do the name change of the GitHub team, and I'm happy to own that action. Nathan will go ahead, Bill. Sorry.
So you had listed some examples of things that would need to change. Another example is the title of the README file in the repo. But I don't think you also said all the places we say CLI would change. I don't think that's true. I think there are some places where we say CLI and we mean the CLI. And I think one of the big advantages of making this change is that those places where we say CLI and mean CLI, people will understand that we mean CLI now and not that we're referring to the whole everything in that repo.
That's a good point.
Pro change. I'm really liking the name orchestrator, honestly, because it does seem like it's more clearly describing what the component does. I think Oleg's point about engine is a good one. I think core is fine, but it's kind of vague. And orchestrator, it does seem like it's clearer. I mean, the downside of orchestrator is it's a long word, I guess.
Good points all around. JJ.
I can't spell orchestrator for the life of me.
I will make a note of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think if you're then doing the community Molly build, that would make you the orchestra. Cool. So did anyone else want to make any comments here? My thought was, in terms of like actually doing a decision making, was to basically use the 1.0.0 dev doc as part of this. So what I can do is folks can sort of chime in inside of that dev doc if you feel strongly about a name suggestion, and we can sort of do a vote by lazy consensus. Whatever folks feel the strongest about, we can go with that, and then I will sort of have it as part of the dev doc. When the dev doc merges, we can actually go forward and start doing the renaming stuff, I think, with the eventual goal of we have the terminology sort of settled by a 1.0.0. So that was my thought in terms of like the decision making from here. Does that sound good to folks? Does anyone feel differently or have a concern about going about it that way?
Part of me feels like this is separate from the dev doc. I see where it plays in, where it's like as we move towards 1.0, we want to, standardize how we refer to things. But I also kind of feel like changing the maintainer groups, if we all can come to a consensus somehow here or in like a channel after this, that can just happen. I don't know if that needs to like wait for a dev doc to merge.
I disagree. I don't know. I'll tell you why. I think that like the sort of impetus of this conversation sort of comes from the idea of like the project is sort of moving. We're sort of moving. We've had this, as BJ Hargrave put it, we had this sort of painful pregnancy of going from a like sort of research like project into now sort of this is an upstream for some downstream productization work that's happening at Red Hat and IBM. And I think we're moving toward more of like more of InstructLab being sort of a real piece of software, right? Like having an API, having process management, having artifact management, having more hardware support, more robust upstream CI, things like that. I think as much as the technical things as we move towards quote a 1.0.0 matter, so too do matters of the community and matters of terminology. So I would argue that, and this is not something that is going to happen overnight. I mean, I know for a fact that like we can change the GitHub team name. There's still a lot of, like as to Bill's point, there's still a lot of reference documents that are going to be gone over. Some will need to be updated, some will not be, and that's not going to happen overnight. So I see that as something that we are also like adopting this new terminology and having this be a goal of ours is to start using this terminology consistently throughout the community is something that I think is a longer term goal. The beginnings of that will happen with stuff like changing the GitHub team name, but I don't think it's going to be like a light switch. I think it's going to be more of a thing. So I feel that it should be sort of incorporated as part of this dev doc, which at the sort of core of the dev doc is sort of like long term for the project. Like what are the things, the last vestiges of this sort of transition as to how we think about InstructLab. And this, I think, is a part of that. So that's why I feel that way.
Okay. Yeah. You put that very well, so I'll agree with you.
Thank you. Wow. Carol, you have your hand up.
Yeah. First of all, I just wanted to highlight Frank's comment in the chat that he likes Core Engine. So both the names, which could be a possibility. And the second point is we have to make sure, because there's going to be a lot of changes to make this happen, that it will be a name that will not be outgrown again. Like CLI, we're discussing this now because the functionality outgrew the CLI name. So I guess core is general enough. It will probably work, but just consider that kind of future-proof it as well, so that we don't have to go through this again.
Yeah, and I'm going to also make the caveat here that even if you voiced your opinion here, I'm going to ask that you comment on the dev doc with how you feel, so that we have it is part of the record, beyond this meeting. So please do that. My goal for this dev doc in general, and I'll be working on this today, responding to questions. I reached out to a couple of folks that I'm waiting to hear back from, but this doc has been open for a couple of weeks, so I'm trying to get this merged by the end of this week. Make your thoughts known by the end of this week, because we're going to be trying to merge this dev doc at the end of this week. And not to say that makes things final, that the dev doc in its final, like, that cannot be edited afterward. Of course it can be, but it's just something that we want to get in. And it's been open for a while already, so folks have had plenty of opportunity to comment up till now. Bill.
So once we have a lot of comments and a lot of voices, how do you get to a decision?
I think in terms of the name, I think whatever the name that people feel the most strongly about is the one we should go with.
But what if like different people feel most strongly about different names? Is there like a resolving mechanism, a vote, an authority, something?
So I guess so that's a good question. I mean the authority in terms of the upstream governance is the oversight committee. So I think JJ is the only member of the oversight committee who's here. So JJ, can we say maybe even regardless of like the votes? I mean, I think the votes should be taken into account, but can we maybe get some sort of comment from the oversight committee as to like, yes, we are fine to go with orchestrator, or yes, we are fine to go with core or engine, or whatever may come to pass.
Yeah, I believe if we get to the point where it's a split vote, or 50-50 or whatever, or 33, I don't know, whatever, we would bump it up to the oversight committee and we'd discuss it, and then they would take it. That seems like that's the whole point of it, to your point. So
Beautiful.
Hopefully we don't have to get there, but if we do, we have a consensus. We have a group of people that will make a decision up there.
Sounds good. So you're saying that if the community does like get like if someone gets to 50, if one of the votes gets to plurality, like someone gets 30% and everything else is below 20%, then we'll just go with whatever the 30% is. Is that right?
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Like, I mean,
I have no objection.
Yeah, this is a community-driven project, and if there's more community that wants it this way, that's the way we go. That's the
Yeah,
way.
that makes sense. I mean, you could make a case where it's better to have ranked choice voting than to have plurality rules, but like that's now we're getting to the weeds, and I don't know if it was worth getting quite that minute.
And the overhead of setting up that type of voting system, even here, would be, you know, there's a lot more logistics when we're just trying to make a decision on a name.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair.
know.
Agreed.
Would it be helpful in terms of like this voting sort of process? Or I mean, you know, obviously I want folks to be able to make the suggestion, but I mean, what I could do, I don't know if folks want to comment like, this is what I would prefer, or this is what I would be fine with, or if we want to simplify it, I can put a comment on this PR that's like, you know, thumbs up for core, heart for engine, like ta-da for orchestrator, and we could do it that way. I'm fine
Yeah,
with
that sounds
either.
good. Having a little
That sounds
simple click
good.
button sounds like a good plan. I like.
Okay, I will do that
Sorry.
right.
Oh,
JJ.
hold on. Yeah, I was going to say, before you do that, if you need
Yes.
something to experiment with first, before
Uh-huh.
that, we still have the naming of the logo still open,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Which has very little downstream effects, right? It's just a
That's
name.
true.
So we could experiment in this space, and then see how the voting works there, and then work from that to do something more permanent by changing the names. Do you see where I'm going there?
You're talking about this one, right, JJ?
I believe so. By the way, it's going to be Alan. I know it is. Yes. Not that I'm biased, but yeah, that one right there. So we could try the different voting mechanisms there first to see how it works, to see if we can get a good way, and then do it then create an SOP out of it. Just an offer.
That sounds good. I do want to try to get the dev doc merged in by the end of the week. But maybe to Charlie's point, like this could be separate from the dev doc, like to walk back all of the pontification I just did. I know Charlie. But JJ raises a good point. I mean, I don't know. How do folks feel about this? I honestly could go either way.
Let's have voting for both of them.
For both of them, you think?
Get people, yeah, to get into the habit of voting and participating in the discussions on GitHub.
I think we can close both votings though on Friday, honestly. Like I think if you want to get it in by Friday, it's fair to say we're going to close this, both of them, by Friday. No, yes.
Yes.
Thoughts?
That sounds good to me.
Yeah. Because like we have to get in the habit of just merging these dev docs. Like if people aren't going to participate on them, then like speak now or, you know, forever hold your peace or whatever the saying is.
That's the exact saying, I believe.
Just make sure that people on Slack, and maybe even a thing to the mailing list, that people are aware of this voting going on, so that they can't say, hey, I didn't hear about this.
If there's one thing about Nathan, it's that he loves to send an email to a mailing list. So I'm sure he can take that on.
Sorry, I was typing. What did you say?
I said
mailing list.
we could send like the reminder to the mailing list to have people vote on this. And I said that you love sending emails to mailing lists.
Could someone else actually do it? I have a lot
Wow.
of other stuff I have to do right now.
Yeah, I can do it.
Thank you.
All right.
But I think, yeah, maybe to like users or dev or something. Maybe users, I guess, would be the close. Well, I don't know, Carol. what do
Maybe
you think?
both. Why not both? Since it's not like we have a lot of traffic on those lists, but it's good to have the reach wider. Same on Slack. We can put it on the dev channel, the users channel, the community channel, so that just in case
Sounds
not
good.
everybody's watching the channel, all the channels.
That sounds good to me.
Thanks. All right. Any further thoughts or comments about this topic?
I will make the like emoji vote comment in the dev doc, and I will link that in the agenda notes here. And if you just care about the naming stuff and you just want to comment on that or vote on that, that's fine. But the dev doc is a lot more encompassing of a lot of other stuff. So feel free to chime into that as well. Just note that I am intending on closing this out on Friday if possible.
All right.
Thanks everyone for participating.
Thanks, Nathan.
Yep.
Any other topics? Yes, JJ.
I should probably go ahead and talk about this because it's real-time information. So if everybody doesn't know, I know we have some new faces here. I help run the taxonomy team for the upstream project. And by default, I became the community model builder because somebody had to do it. It turned out it was me. And as of last night, we have successfully gotten through at least one run now of the community model build. I don't fully know what everything quite means yet, but software's working, which is good, right? That is a huge step from where we were weeks ago, if not months ago. I have dedicated hardware for this for the foreseeable future, which is good. So I'm an old sysadmin. I've got gray in my beard. I used to run CI pipelines for companies. So I don't trust a CI pipeline until I run it twice, at least, and it comes out green, both sides, to make sure that it is actually working. But I'm here to announce that we've at least gotten it green once, right? So I'm going to go continue working through this, but hopefully I'm thinking in the next week or two, we will be able to say that the community model build is back up and running on Granite 7B right now. And then I will swap it out for 8 after the fact. And then we can start looking at opening up the taxonomy again. If you haven't noticed, the taxonomy team is gotten extremely small, less engaged, mainly because obviously the CMB isn't running. But as soon as the CMB is running and we know that pipeline works, then we can start talking about adding back to the taxonomy and doing the community build or community taxonomy, which in turn allows us to evangelize it more and start bringing more people in from the community. So hopefully this is all great news, and I'm seeing all the announcements, etc. The joins, but I want to tell you that it is moving forward. It is good stuff. And Charlie, what can I answer for you?
A couple of things. So I know it was discussed last night when we were talking that you're using Granite 7B Lab. This is more of a question for the room, I guess. I guess Oleg would probably be the person who would know this the most. Should JJ be using Granite 7B Base as the student model in this scenario?
It's supposed to be that. Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, the problem is I don't actually know how to switch out the models yet.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't y'all changed this so much since I've did this that I'm still figuring out where to slot the things in. But yes,
Okay.
I am absolutely supposed to use both Granite 7B base for the final base run that we'll be pushing up that hasn't changed since May. And then as soon as that is done, then I'm going to change it to Granite 3 8B base.
Yeah.
For probably one run.
Okay.
Because Granite 8B 3.1 base is coming out in a couple weeks anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I was supposed to say that out loud. I'm sorry if I did. But that is then I'll have to slot that one in instead, and then we'll have to create a new branch or new release cycle, I guess, for that one. So I'll have a deprecated 7B that in theory we could continue building as time progresses. If we decide to do it as a group, we'll do the 3.8.8.3.0 release once, and in theory continue if we wanted to. Because if it only takes 2 hours to do the training, that's another thing, Charlie, we need to talk about. That seems really short.
That was really short. I was thinking about that as well.
Yeah, maybe we should spend some minutes after this and dig in together, because
Yeah.
it didn't seem right. But it succeeded anyway. We'll talk about that later. And then we'll go to 3.1, and then whenever the next version of the base comes out, in theory, we could just slot that in too, and then we could just have the community. Do you see where I'm going with this? Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm babbling.
yeah, no, that makes sense. And I guess my other question was, have you run eval on those models? Because the 2-hour runtime was a little suspicious. I guess it could be because I noticed in the SDG run that it looked to be almost downsampling things to 30 samples per generated data. So like you had like 1,000 samples and then printed setting to 30.
Yeah,
noticed that.
yeah.
So
Exactly.
we can look into it. It all worked is the important thing.
I want to actually, this is for everyone's knowledge. So because everybody needs to see, because this is the community project, this is it actually running. And as you see right here, it did tell, oh, that is really small. I'm sorry.
6.26.
Yeah. Where'd it go? Oh no. Sorry. My bad. There we go. Yeah. So this is the actual, it did actually do the training, but maybe it just didn't do enough. Generation.
I think the generation was too
low.
It could be your SDG scale factor if they're all skills could be too low because that's like setting it. It's probably defaulting to 30. You might want to like just like turn that up to like 70 or 100. I'm not familiar with the sampling of skills. I know Oleg actually. There's a piece of code that went in recently that should be upsampling things to be like the proper proportion compared to knowledge and skills. So we can look at generation. Training looked like
I believe this
perfectly.
is about to change. Sorry.
That's okay.
But yeah, my what I'd heard was that it's hard coded at 30 at the moment, but I could be mistaken about that.
So the scale factor, I think you can't go below 30. I think you can turn it up. I think it's hard coded to be stuck at 30 if you try to turn it to like 10 is what I've heard. I think if you set it to 100, it will honor that. Because I was noticing in the output of SDG, it said data set generated with like 500 samples, scaling it to be 30, which in my head means, oh, we're dropping data when it looks like that, especially when you run training and it's super fast.
That sounds right to me, but I think that I think it's the case you can't actually adjust it below 30, but maybe I'm wrong.
We can
30,
we can all talk offline after this, and then maybe
sounds
we can
good.
get some of the SDG SMEs in the chat and figure out if that was the weird part of the process.
Yeah, Ben has been working on this code, so if we can just coordinate with Ben, that would be helpful.
Yeah, sounds good.
But celebrate, people. It's happening. This is even if you didn't understand any of the words that they said. By the way, I didn't understand all the words myself. Celebrate, everybody. This is big news.
Yeah, thanks for sharing the great news.
Thank you.
I also think there's a huge value in keeping 7B around. I just want to say for community because it's llama architecture, and we know that training on consumer hardware works pretty well at that. I would be hesitant to get rid of it till we know that 8B with all of the auto model stuff works properly on a laptop. So this is good to keep it around.
Yeah, in all seriousness, I mean, as soon as I want to turn this into a Jenkins job, right? Like, I don't want to ever have to touch this stuff. Like, I should never have to touch it. The bot should do the work for me. So, like, if we just put in another job that just runs this thing and it runs on Friday night and comes out on Saturday or Monday and has a new one and then releases it to the temp environment that we need to verify stuff, I'm cool with that. Like, yeah, exactly. There you go, Nathan. I thought you'd love that one. But you get my point. But yeah.
Yes, Bill.
Oh yeah, I think it'd be good just to add on to that. If that Jenkins job could then also check the evaluation score, make sure it's good, and yeah, exactly that sort of thing.
Like, I don't want to ever touch this ever again, right? Like I seriously have no desire to ever care about CUDA and NVIDIA hardware ever again. Like my job is to help the taxonomy team, right? But in all seriousness, though, I have words from high up on IBM's side that there is a chance that we could use the IBM service down the line, which should actually save us real money. So we could actually turn this all into the IBM service as we just slot in the different models, also the base models, to be able to release them and then have it all done through the IBM cloud, where we don't have to pay for anything because it's all just done for free on IBM cloud, or free on IBM cloud, in that space, which in turns could turn this all into GitHub Actions, right? Where we create the release candidate or release branch inside the taxonomy, it kicks it all off and then releases it into an environment where I've already mapped this out in my head. It's just, we just need to wait for some projects and products to come out the door over there that we could start migrating into that space. So I'm thinking hopefully H1 next year, this could be really cool.
Yes, Bill.
Did you say that IBM is committed to giving us this for free? Because generally IBM cloud services are very expensive.
This is a recorded call. I prefer not to continue this conversation.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's fair.
All
I
right.
used to work at IBM, actually.
Thanks, JJ. That's amazing. Any other comments on this wonderful news on the build? All right. Any other comments, topics in general? Okay, now let's take some time back in the hour and go have a celebratory drink or something. And yes, we'll catch you in the next couple of days for a CLI, soon to be renamed meeting, as well as all the other good stuff happening. So thanks, everyone. Take care. See you next week.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Have a
Thank you.
great week.
You too. Bye.